Welcome back to Talking Shit, where we are talking all sorts of shit. Schitt's Creek, that is. Today we are talking about Season 4, Episode 5, Rest in Peace, Moira Rose. And of course, as always, I'm not alone. I am joined by someone who finds quiche vivacious, Stuart. Stuart, how are you?
I am so happy for this episode because quiche is vivacious has been the funniest thing I've heard all year. Admittedly, it's only the 20th of January when we're recording this, but I think it will probably stay with me for the rest of the year. I was on the floor laughing my ass off so much at that stupid quote. And the rest of the episode, there was like good, funny things otherwise, but that hit me for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. If any of our listeners are also listeners of the Crying Laughing podcast, you'll know why I found the quiche conversation particularly hilarious. Go check out their podcast because they had a very funny conversation surrounding quiche. But Stuart, today we're not alone. We are joined by a very special Canadian guest. We love having Canadians on this podcast, and she hath risen. Grace Leeder. Grace, how are you?
Good. Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I'm here in my podunk motel.
I'm so excited to have you here, Grace. This episode, you picked a good one. You picked a great one.
I picked it solely on the name alone. You gave me a list of episodes, and I said, I will take R.I.P. Moira, please, for 500.
Yes. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe. Talking Shit everywhere on YouTube at Talking Shit. We're up to 144 subscribers, people. And you know what that means? We're nearly up to 150, which means we'd only be 50 away from 200, which means we'll do something exciting, still undetermined as to what that will be. Maybe impressions, maybe accents, definitely not waterboarding. It's going to be something fun. So keep subscribing. We appreciate it.
I can't believe the waterboarding bit is still living on. It's been like half a season and we're still talking about
the thing is,
not going to waterboard ourselves. I didn't think it was ever up for contention, but sure.
The problem is I have a really bad memory, except when it comes to bits. I will drive a bit into the ground.
Ironically, the only way to convince the two of you to do waterboarding as the thing would be if the two of you were waterboarded. So it can therefore never happen.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this episode, Stuart, broad strokes, broad thoughts here on Rip Moira Rose.
Brilliant episode. We've talked so many times about the Venn diagram of like good comedy bits and good emotional beats and like progression of the plot. I think it's had a bit of everything. Not too much moving in terms of the plot dial, like not a great deal happened, but the Alexis and Ted of everything. Oh, we got some juice there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was some
there's some stuff. Spice, there's some emotional beats, and I feel like the crown jewel of hysterical moments it has to be Moira, right, Grace? Like just reveling in the thought of her death and what everyone would say about it if she died. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very funny. I think like all three storylines work. I think the thing, Stuart, that you're talking about of like this, what makes the perfect episode. Obviously, the last episode I came on to was really big plot stuff, like and almost not so much plot stuff, just as like so much heart. It's Happy Anniversary, where they kind of all realize like they live here, they have each other, they dance at the barn all night long. It's beautiful. And so I feel like this is a little bit for me of like, oh yeah, this is like what is not that episode is obviously incredible, but this is why you keep coming back each week, is that it's like it's like a quiche, it's nice comfort food. I don't know if quiche is a comfort food, but it's exquisite. It's exquisite. But it's very, very funny all the way through, and then just right at the end it's like, secretly we got you, like there's like we're gonna like get you with all this like very heartwarming like stuff right here at the end. We're gonna sneak it in. It's delightful. So this episode's very fun. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, let's get into a little bit of a quick recap here on what happened. Moira is alarmed to discover an online rumor claiming she has died. Initially mortified, she becomes increasingly amused and even flattered by the outpouring of attention and sympathy from fans and community members alike. Unfortunately, by the time she's dressed and ready for the lone reporter at the motel, they have moved on to another celebrity death as a tiny kitten got stomped on by a giraffe, as Moira likes to say. Meanwhile, Roland asks Johnny to be the godfather of his upcoming baby. After seeing how Roland treats his body and worrying that he and Jocelyn actually might die, leaving him to raise said baby, Johnny approaches Jocelyn to let her down easy. We come to find out Roland has been asking everyone to be the baby's godfather. So, Johnny doesn't really have to worry too much. He's like fourth in line. And Alexis and David are on a fun little jaunt to sample potential items for Rose Apothecary, but things go sideways when one of the clients is Ted's new girlfriend, Heather. Alexis is extremely uncomfortable, but manages to pull herself together to secure David exclusivity on Heather's delicious goat cheese, because she's an absolute legend, Stuart.
I am so happy that we've seen Business Alexis come back again and save a deal for David. It seems to be like the thing she was born to do, right? Like, why is she not CEO of sales or whatever it was title that she was going to suggest? Because she should be. She seems to be getting him all the business in the world and like getting all the money. She's really good at this.
Yeah, I love that, because like you're right, this is the second time we've seen Business Alexis, and she does the same kind of thing she does the first time at Blouse, not Blouse Bar, not Blouse House, where she just repeats what David says. It's like to raise brand awareness, but she's really good with people, Grace. Like, underrated. She's excellent with people.
Yeah, I mean, she is really good with people. It's actually the thing that like sort of like, how much there really was anything there in terms of like her calling the vet's office to talk to Ted, but she basically is able. What I really think is like is beautiful about this moment is it's this heartbreaking revelation of like, oh yeah, you were like, I owe you one because you're the one who sent all of my messages along to Ted, which I perceive to be like business emails, like about her animals, not necessarily like, I love Ted. But she basically takes this moment where she could take it as like this like kind of heartbreaking moment and utilizes it for good and saves the business deal.
I love Alexis this episode. Like, I think it's the way Annie Murphy plays her, right? Like, when they're in the car leaving on their way back, and he asks like, "Oh, you're in love with Ted, aren't you?" And she goes, "Yeah." And then like there's a beat, and then she just goes, "Mm-hmm." Like, that extra "mm-hmm" is so sad and so heartbreaking. And it's just, you could see how uncomfortable she is with the entire situation. Like, she can't even, I feel like the reason they don't divulge that Alexis worked for Ted at the vet's office until they're kind of really forced to is because I think Alexis is worried that, like, if she even mentions anything like that of her knowing Ted, it's going to be so obvious that she's in love with him, and or maybe obvious that they dated. But yeah, this feels like a massive episode for Alexis Stewart in a season where, we've already gotten a couple big Alexis moments.
Yeah, I think it's putting like a full stop on the sentence of like showing how she has matured, because we've been talking about her kind of like being selfish in a way of previously, and now she's willing to say, yeah, I'm in love with Ted, but she doesn't want to interfere with anything that he's got going on. She really doesn't she tries to avoid it so that it doesn't even come up in conversation, so they don't even approach it. She doesn't even want to be there, but David like drags her along. So I think that this is a great way of kind of showing that Alexis has grown considerably from the Alexis that we once knew. And it also kind of just underpins that like kind of real sting of that kind of missed opportunity of like, maybe if she had met Ted later on after she had matured, maybe like it would work out and that we wouldn't be in this situation. But then there is that thought of, well, would she be feeling this had she not fumbled before and then got to know Ted on a kind of like deeper level just from working with each other and just being in the proximity of each other? And it's so strange because even when they're talking over like the table and not really kind of like those two conversing, they still have this moment when Ted makes the pun and then she just can't help herself and go, "Oh, Ted." And it's like, it's one of those real kind of like relationship like comments of just, "Oh, you" kind of thing. And like I know how, like, I know to expect it, and you're just being goofy, like, cut it out kind of thing. And that was, I think, the most telling thing that really kind of made it sting for me, because I was like, oh, I think it just feels natural to her to
It's such a
want
bad
to be
pun
like
too.
that.
It's about the quiche being exceptional, is it not? That's the line that like gets her.
I mean, you might say
Yeah.
excellent, but either way, it's an egg. It's an egg pun. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's so Ted. It's so Ted. And I agree with you. It does feel very, oh, you. And it's almost like when you see someone like smiling at their phone, right? And you know they're talking to someone they like have romantic feelings for because they're just
Oh,
too
yeah.
smiley, like too giddy. That's kind of the
Mhm.
face she's making. And I think anyone with eyes could see, and maybe Heather can't, and she's a little bit distracted, but anyone with eyes could see that, like, gosh, Alexis feels very strongly for Ted. Grace, what did you make of the fact that while Ted did divulge to Heather that Alexis did work for him at the vet's office, he didn't say anything about them dating?
Okay, yeah. So this setup is very classic sitcom-y, right? And it's pretty tropey in terms of like winding up in a situation where there are romantic feelings involved, but nobody can divulge the full thing because there's some other reason why we have to keep things a secret. And I was thinking, like, for a show that I feel like is pretty progressive, as the show is setting up this thing, I'm like, oh, I feel like there's potential that I'm gonna like knock I go back and forth between whether it should be Ted or Alexis who kind of get like docked points, because on one hand it's like Alexis coming and showing up at Ted's girlfriend's house, and it puts Ted in the awkward position of having to then divulge that they've been dating. On the other hand, Ted is the one in a relationship, not Alexis. So I'm like, but I honestly think like Ted is the first one to admit that at least they worked together. And so I feel like I give him some credit for that. And Alexis doesn't want to blow the deal for David. So I'm kind of like giving them both a little bit of an out in terms of like why. And I guess also Ted, there's the potential also that he doesn't want to blow a business deal for his girlfriend as well by divulging that like, oh, the potential partner is like the brother of my ex. But so I give them all kind of a little bit about, even though I think probably if we weren't in a sitcom, this just like they're like, oh, okay, never mind, I'm leaving. I'm leaving and it doesn't happen. But of course you have to play into like the scene and the how funny it is and how kind of like sweet it is that like, because we don't really, right, sure, I'm sure she has great goat cheese, we don't really care about Rachel in this situation at all. So yeah,
I think I lay the blame at Ted's feet. I think if you're the partner, it's your job to be like, this is my ex. Now granted, you could say that in a way of like, we dated a long time ago, we've since worked together,
Yeah.
like everything is fine. I do think I lay the
Lie
blame
more?
at Ted. I don't know. Especially because I mean, let's face it. Okay, so we know Ted is like his late 20s, right? That's what we've kind of like surmised, or we're guessing. He's late 20s.
Mhm.
She's in her 40s. If she can't be okay with like selling her goods to her boyfriend's ex-girlfriend's brother, like, come get more mature, Heather. Get more mature, Heather. Come on now.
I keep
Like,
calling
that's
her
a bit
Rachel.
ridiculous.
Maybe I keep
She
mixing up her
looks
names.
like a
See,
Rachel.
this is how little she
She looks like a Rachel. She also sounds like my old dental hygienist in a way that I can't unhear.
Oh, I have a dental hygienist story, Jess, and I was like, don't forget to do it. So I went to the dentist for the first
This is
time
incredible.
in a long time recently, Jess,
Mhm.
and I love it. They put the TV in front of you and like, what do you want to watch? And my dental
Oh.
hygienist, she just puts on nature shows, and I'm the kind of person who's like, yeah, whatever. You just like whatever. It's whatever's on, it's on. My dentist, I had to go for a filling, and she had on the first time I went for my checkup appointment for the filling, she had on Hot Frosty, and I was like, "This is great. We will watch."
No,
this.
she didn't have Hot Frosty on.
Yeah, she had Hot Frosty on.
That
The
is
second time I went in for my
outrageous.
filling, it was Schitt's Creek, and they said, "Do you want to change it?" I said, "No, I love Schitt's Creek. This is great. You can watch it." She goes, "Great, I love this show." And as she was doing my filling, every time she'd do my filling, she'd like be clearly while she thinks not while she's doing my filling. Let me correct it. Not while she's doing my filling. While she'd be like, "Oh, I need this item from the dentist." She'd get it, and she'd be watching it, and she'd clearly be distracted by the television above, and be like, "That show's great," and then would go back to doing my filling, and I just couldn't help but think. But I was coming back on talking shit. I couldn't help but thinking, but like, this is the greatest show. It even prevents my dentist from being able to finish my work at a time I meant. Not really. She's lovely, but it was very funny. So I have a dentist story about
outrageous.
Yeah, it's how much we love it in Canada.
If by the smallest odds they are listening to this right now, we need to hear, because that would be ridiculous.
So yeah,
I would love that. Yeah, that's incredible. Good. You know what? Your dentist has incredible taste.
I know. I agree.
Which is very funny. Okay. So Alexis and David, the only other thing I really wanted to point out is that I can't, the nom nom for us, David. It's everything. Like nom nom for us.
It's
like,
the way he schooled her for it in the car, and then she says it again later, then like kind of trails off at the end, and she realizes how goofy it sounds in front of Ted because she gets embarrassed.
Alexis is very good. You said like whether or not she was actually going to come along. David does offer her 2 outs. First of all, you could walk back to town. She goes, David, that's a 15-minute walk. And then the other one is that she can stay in the car with the windows down, which she is not going to do. So,
she's not a baby, you're definitely supposed to leave in the car with the windows down.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Definitely. You're not allowed to leave a baby in the car no matter what.
I don't care if you leave the windows down or if you have one of those Teslas that have air control. Stop it. I love Alexis's nom nom for us. And what does she say? Those farm witches? They're Mennonites.
The Mennonites.
Who David was left with. It's I believe in season 1, right?
Yeah.
In the farm field. Yeah.
Now they're making yummy peanut butter treats. So yeah, let's talk Johnny and Roland. Let's leave Moira for last. So I wish I could say Roland didn't do things to irritate me this episode, but like truly he's been on a roll lately, a Roland. He just keeps doing things. Like literally the first scene we see with him, he's sitting at the front desk and he's eating this like cinnamon roll, not even on a plate. Like it's just on the counter. I don't understand this. Like, Grace, please make it make sense to me why this is acceptable.
No, Roland. There's a lot of eating faux pas this episode in the diner as well when they're having a meal. No, Roland that continues to be, I think, probably still my least favorite part of the show. But you know, we all have to live with Roland, the shits included. It's immersive Schitt's Creek, you know. They too have to suffer from Roland. We will too.
Do we have to though? Really? Like, because this is the thing. I'm usually on board with some of Roland's shenanigans, and I like it when he is a doofus because it is funny. But the eating faux pas in this episode were outrageous. I have a thing. I can't stand it when people chew with their mouth open.
Oh, me neither.
The worst with doing that and then just coughing without covering his mouth. Like post-pandemic, no, thank you. Like cut that out completely. But even before, I'm like, no, that's just the worst. The order though, extra
fried
skin,
chicken on a waffle, extra skin with hot sauce, butter, and gravy, and unsaid but definitely seen, pretty much an entire jar of maple syrup. And this is where my Canadian question comes in, Grace. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on this or if you noticed anything while watching, but I was like, that maple syrup looks so thin. And I don't know if that's a Canadian thing and like our maple syrup is thicker for whatever reason, but I feel like it didn't have enough viscosity to it.
So there definitely is, I think, like within a lot of Canadian households, a debate about basically, but I think you would have it in America too, and probably you have it over UK. Well, is basically like what I'm gonna call real maple syrup, and then like store-bought maple syrup, like
right, Mrs. Butterworth sort of thing.
Yeah, there is like a debate about which one, like, you know, and it does feel like you kind of get like looked down upon if you're basically not buying like authentic. Basically, like if you would go to Rose's Apothecary and buy maple syrup, it's gonna look more it probably would end up being a little bit like thinner than basically like the molasses you're gonna get out of thing, but not that like shouldn't be noticeable. I didn't catch this, whether I thought that Roland's maple syrup looked extremely thin, but it doesn't. It probably just in my head is probably. I feel bad saying real maple syrup because I think you're totally fine to eat like store-bought maple
I mean,
syrup.
it is what it is, whatever you can afford, right? Like, we're not trying to be like, you should spend the extra money, but I live close to Vermont. I've had real, like, Vermont maple syrup. I don't know if I've had Canadian maple syrup, but it is certainly better. It's less high fructose syrup.
Sometimes I think like, I probably don't come off on a podcast sounding extremely Canadian, but what I'm about to say is going to sound extremely Canadian, which is I have 2 in-laws whose families do make maple syrup every year. and they both literally make their own maple syrup. So I think I do know a thing or two about maple syrup. Yeah.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. It was just something I noticed. Yeah.
It was just so supremely. I think I noticed it because it exited the jar so quickly because he put an entire jar on his plate. And thankfully it was like kind of one of those like lit plates because it kind of made this ocean of maple syrup that this like waffle was sat in. It was so wet. Like,
well, I wonder if that's it's funny because I think that there's 2 bits you could do, which is one could be let's watch the
I have the clip pulled up, so this is Where's my gravy, Twyla?
I wonder if there's a deleted scene though.
Look,
that's pretty thin maple syrup.
It is coming out real quick. And maybe they did it on purpose because they're like, we're gonna need this guy to pour the entire jar on the plate, so we have to make it happen quickly.
Well, yeah, in a show where like this was like a network sitcom, so it doesn't mostly have to fit the like time constraints of network TV.
Yeah.
But you would think that if they were like making this in the streaming era, that like the funnier bit is dumping the whole jar of maple syrup up, but it's the slow molassesly maple syrup. Like the scene is like 4 minutes long. Yeah. I think the funniest part of this whole storyline is, I mean, the impetus here is that he wants him to be the godfather of his child. It's not so much that he absolutely doesn't want to do it, but also it's the fact that he's so concerned that Roland might die at any moment.
The hacking at the diner is horrifying, coupled with the fact that he bought his and hers like cliff diving lessons for Jocelyn. Like, I think the thing is, Johnny needs to remember the only situation in which the godparent is really, I guess, taking the child and raising it is if both of them die. So if Roland dies, like, he's fine. There's still Jocelyn. And I guess that's where the cliff diving lessons come into play, right? Because presumably we know Jocelyn loves a Dorito casserole, but I don't think she's scarfing down extra chicken skin on the daily, Stuart.
No, but would she be, jumping off a cliff because her love for Roland is that deep that she can't go on without him? Because we know that she does love him so dearly. Like, is that potentially a possibility? Probably not. She seems like she's got a solid head on her shoulders. But do you want to be responsible for Roland's kid in any way?
No, never. Exactly. Nothing with Roland's DNA do I want to be responsible for. No.
But also, if Roland dies, then you only not only need one person to die. No, if one person dies, you then have this child. So
Yeah. Whatever's Mutt though, right? Like, why can't we have Mutt take the kid in? He's an adult at this point.
That is true, but also on the Mutt of it all, when Jocelyn was getting a little bit judgy towards Johnny about the whole parenting thing, I was like, did you not raise
Look
Mutt?
in a mirror. Your child sucks. Like, actually sucks. David and Alexis at least are charming. Mutt has nothing. He has hair and abs. Good for him. Come on now.
He's got Tallahassee.
But also, we haven't talked about Roland's absolute worst offense in this episode, which is that he's asked multiple people to be the godfather of his child.
I don't think that is that.
You don't think it's that bad?
I think that's common sense, because I mean, like, just like if you're worried about like the contingency of 2 parents, then obviously like one goes and it brings the numbers down. What happens if the godparent goes? You need a backup. And what's better than one
thank
backup?
God you've said this, Stuart. Would you like to be the godfather of my unborn child? I'm building the list.
You got to put the feelers out, right? You got to get backups on backups.
I don't hear Stuart saying yes. I don't hear it.
How do I leave? How do I leave here?
The quiche is vivacious. No, I think that's the one redeeming, and he's not even in the scene, like, Roland moment is when Jocelyn says, I think he just, he wants to make sure our bases are covered. Like, he just wants our kid to be, like, loved and taken care of. And that is very sweet. Because in my head, the reason he's asking so many people was so that he could do a Marlon Brando Godfather impression. Like, truly.
Yeah.
It could have been it.
I forgot about that impression for a moment. Yeah, that's his worst offense in this whole thing. That and also thinking that it was in Casino.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, Roland is just, Jocelyn, your first two were no walk in the park. And he's like, oh, they're good kids. You had a lot of help. Okay, Jocelyn. All right. Like,
I know I was going to give
fired.
Jocelyn some kudos, but I forgot that she insults their parenting. Yeah. Because I feel like she's very self-aware when it's like, oh, he asked you to be the godfather. Like, that's good self-awareness of Jocelyn to know. That's the part I don't understand, is the line between Jocelyn can be so self-aware and then also have moments where it's like, oh, but you're in love with Roland. It's wild to me. But
it's just her weakness. It's her kryptonite. Yeah. Did you notice, Stuart, what they happened to be eating in the scene between Johnny and Jocelyn? What they were snacking on?
What they were snacking on?
They were snacking on scones.
Yes, they were.
We've had many debates on this podcast about empty teacups. Yes, tea and scones. Anything else on Johnny and Roland before we hop on over to Moira Rose? All right, let's talk about Moira, because she's really going through it. She's presumed dead. We don't know what the cause of death was reported on the internet, but everyone thinks she's dead. And it takes 3 seconds maybe for Moira to really be like leaning all in on the Moira is dead of it all. I love Grace. I love the moment when she is standing in the doorway listening to the Jazzagals cry and be upset at her death. And then she hath risen.
It's so good. I love this because I feel like the whole scene of her. I think my favorite line of the episode is her asking how many vans there are, and Stevie saying just one, unless they all do their news together, which she's joking, and Moira goes, oh, Stevie, no. Stevie couldn't possibly understand how news scrums work. I think it's my favorite line of the episode. But I just, they've moved away for a long time, as they'll say at the end of the episode, like, they're not going to return any of this stuff. This is the first time any of them have contacted them. I think this is actually very, very sweet in Moira Rose way of her getting her flowers literally and figuratively over the course of the
episode. Pink carnations.
I know, but
pink carnations can. Stuart, she prints what reporters have said about her and hands it out to Jessica.
On that like old school printer paper that's got like the dots that you tear off on the sides as well, like proper business paper, because of like where else is she going to do it? I mean, if I was in her position, I mean, I'd probably want to preserve that just to like get some nice words about me. But like, look, proof. People do say nice things occasionally. I might print off our reviews.
She's the unsung hero of afternoon television.
God, I couldn't help but like crease up at the whole projected nominations for like all the daytime awards, and then she just has to correct them from 10 to 12. Like, of course she does.
It's not being nominated. It is presumptive nominee. It's the most ever presumptive nominee to then not be nominated. Is what her accomplishment is.
She's so the funny. Glenn Close of daytime TV.
Maybe being nominated and then not being nominated. So funny.
I love it. And she's just so up on it. Like, theoretically, what do we think we'd be saying right now if I had died? Like, she just wants the compliments and flattery that accompany someone dying, where it's like you wax poetically about them. You never say anything negative. It's incredible. She's just so in on this. And I like that she doesn't, when the reporter shows up, she's shocked because she thinks that somehow this information is limited to the internet. Like, she's just a little bit out of touch on most things. And oh god, I love it. I love her freaking out. We get a classic Moira scream, Stuart, like not this one, not that one, but we get a no from her.
Funny to me. Like I've got a feeling like when she first did it, they were like, okay, we're writing more of those into future scenes.
Jess, how'd you get my ringtone? That's my. I
Can
thought
you imagine
I thought I
that
got a
being-
message. I got a text message.
so ridiculous.
It is so I love it so much. I love it, and I love that we get a little bit more of Stevie and Moira, an underrated
Yeah.
pairing. They're so funny together because Stevie is so down to earth and like normal.
They're probably the most in terms of like I think the most funny, which is the Roses, and then any normal human being. They're the most two extreme versions of those things, right? That's what's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Stevie is
yeah.
so dry with it, and then Moira takes it seriously.
Seriously.
and then tries to like almost gaslight her a little bit with just
It's
like,
so-
oh no,
yeah.
like you said, like, it was just like that dynamic is never not going to be funny. And like with David, it's funny because obviously like David picks up on Stevie mocking him, but Moira is just so above it that she doesn't even notice it, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So there is a weird thing. So I began writing for some online publications. There is a weird thing where we all know this, but it's a little bit surreal that obituaries often get written for people, especially people who maybe are older, before they die. And do you think any of us will ever come to a moment where we're famous enough where an obituary gets written about us before we die? What a weird thing about our society that it's like we must pre-write the obituary, just in case.
Gotta be first to post it. You can't. Heaven forbid
Gotta.
you wait an hour to write something. Yeah, no, gotta be first.
I now wonder, like, I think it would be funny if ChatGPT had the ability to like comb the internet and see what's on there about me and then ask it to write an obituary
So
for
funny.
me
Yeah.
and see what it comes up.
This was also like, I feel like a little bit before 2018, but this is a real thing of like the constant, like the way in which news about a celebrity dying that was fake could happen so quickly. Like it would be like, yeah, this person died. And you're like, oh my God, this person, when you see, and then I feel like I have trauma from seeing people trend on Twitter and I'm like, oh my God, they must have died. And then it's just like, no, they're in a new movie. You're like, oh, thank God, oh, thank God Denzel Washington is okay, Yeah.
I asked ChatGPT.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, great.
You
Sorry.
did
Yeah.
not.
I did,
Right,
and it's so wrong. So
Yeah.
my prompt was, can you write an obituary about Jessica Sterling, the podcaster? Because that's pretty much all I'd be on the internet known as, and there's many Jessica Sterlings. That's the only prompt I could think. And it is so funny. It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of Jessica Sterling, a cherished podcaster, friend, and mentor. Jessica was a co-host of several beloved podcasts, including Schitt Happens, a Boy Meets World podcast. That's not the name of the podcast.
Amazing.
And post-show recaps, where her humor, insight, and passion
wow.
touch the lives of countless listeners around the globe. Wow. Oh, look at that. I'm a fierce advocate for mental health awareness and community building.
Can I just I've just
Incredible.
prompt up a new one in ChatGPT. It's a little long, but can I just
Yeah.
here is one in the voice of Moira Rose.
Yes, please.
It's with the most grievous of hearts and insurmountable sense of loss that we bid adieu to our beloved Jess Sterling, a paragon of vocal splendor and the unparalleled doyen of podcasting discourse. That's your in the voice of Moira Rose obituary. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Oh, well, yeah. I just love the Stevie Moira dynamic and them trying to like figure out what she's gonna wear and her talking about, no, what, that's why I'm in this podunk motel. There was a cult. You brainwashed me. And Stevie saying, couldn't someone else brainwash you? Does it have to be me?
The truth serum as well. Like, why does Moira think that truth serums are real things?
I mean, it's in D&D, so that's
Yeah,
real life.
D&D is
I
not
guess.
real life,
real-
Jess.
I mean, it could be real life. So then Moira gets dressed in this outfit, which we'll talk about in our Wig Watch segment. And unfortunately, the solo reporter has left because he is going to cover the death of beloved internet kitten Cuppy, who is friends with a giraffe, and the giraffe stepped on it. I
That's the end of the episode.
I love Moira's response of, well, of course he did. Well, of course he did. It's ridiculous. And Stevie does try to make it like, there's so many moments, Grace, throughout this episode that Stevie tries to say to Moira, so many people are going to be happy to hear that you're alive.
Yeah. But she needs to make it a moment. She's a moment where she can spin what has been happening, that she's not dead. Yeah.
It's so good. I love Moira so much. Anything else on this episode before we dive into some listener feedback we got?
Most of that I fully agreed with their take on keeping all the stuff that they were sent. If you're sent perishables, you don't return them. Like, I don't care even if they go to the wrong person. You keep them and you gorge on them. It looked like they were sent some really good stuff as well.
Also, how are you going to return them? Like, usually someone's reaching out to, like, a florist. Like, you're going to bring it back to the florist?
Yeah.
Like, no, come on. The money's gone. Just keep it.
Exactly. And plus, like they said, this is the first they've heard of from these people, like, since they've been where they've been. So, yeah, they're absolutely owed it.
The cost of arranging everything to be returned would be enormous on top of
that as well.
The secondary fact of nobody had reached out until they thought she was dead. So
yeah.
Which also is true that they also seemingly know that she does live at that motel.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Everyone knows.
Yeah, everyone knows.
All right, let's get into some listener feedback. First, I did reach out to my co-host on the podcast, Schitt 90 Shows Taught Me, not Shit Happens, about a Boy Meets World podcast, which we haven't covered in years. That's okay. Sarah Humphrey, and I asked her, because she has very strong opinions on flowers, and I said, what do you think of someone sending pink carnations as a funereal flower or something you send when someone has a loss? And she said, cringe face, maybe as a filler flower.
Filler flower.
Yeah.
A filler flower.
Yeah. In my opinion, carnations are not anything you should give an adult person. Like, carnations are like, I'm in high school and I have a crush on somebody and it's Valentine's Day. I will give them a pink carnation. Like,
not me Googling carnations because I have no idea.
You don't? What? Do you have them over there?
I mean, I'm sure we have flowers. So I'm sure we must have them. But yeah, I'm like, okay, they look okay, I guess.
They're just cheap.
No, I just don't understand why there is etiquette around what flowers you can and can't send for occasions. They're like,
because we live in a stupid society.
Yeah.
Society does.
Aren't they? I feel like carnations are often the ones that get like, that's what you'd wear to like right? Isn't it like
that's what I'm saying, Grace?
Yeah, like a boutonniere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're cheapy. We also got an email from Shannon. Hi, Jess and Stuart. Just wanted to let you know that Stuart is not the last person to watch Schitt's Creek. Someone posted a picture of Dan Levy as David in one of my Facebook groups that has nothing to do with Schitt's Creek or TV and asked, I see this guy and all his crazy facial expressions posted everywhere. What show is he on? The comments were, of course, flooded with people saying he's from Schitt's Creek and that the poster should definitely watch it since it's the best show ever. I commented with a recommendation to listen to your podcast. That's so sweet, Shannon. Hey. So I hope at least a few people take my advice. Now that you're into season 4, your episodes are better than ever, and I really enjoy hearing Stuart's takes on each new to him episode. Best wishes and warmest regards, Shannon. That's so kind.
Wonderful. I do have a question, though. Was it a dentistry Facebook group? Maybe we can make that connection that way.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah, she kept looking at the TV, be like, "Who is this crazy guy? What show is he on?"
Look at these facial expressions. We also got an email from Lauren. Firstly, I can confirm that freezing bras was in fact a slumber party prank among millennial girls. I'll admit I tried it once in middle school, but I don't think the victim even realized. She only mentioned how cold her bra was the next morning.
Wow.
At least I never resorted to Sharpie face art. On a different note, I wanted to express how much I love this episode. It was truly fantastic. So this is last week's episode. Moira's green wig, the hilarious cold open, Dan Levy's superb acting, a glimpse of Roland's softer side, and all those heartwarming Moira and Alexis moments. It's wonderful to see how far their relationship has progressed since that awkward lunch a few seasons ago. Chef's kiss. Love the podcast and keep up the great work. XOXO, Lauren. Thank you so much,
Amazing.
Lauren.
That's incredible.
Did you ever write on anyone's face in Sharpie, Stuart?
No, but I do appreciate those TikToks of like kids doing it and then the parents filming them when they try to wash it off and they're just like, it's not coming off.
I'll go at school.
Kids
That's
are
the one I know.
dumb. Yeah.
That's the classic one of the girl being so mad because she has school that she has to get. She's so mad. If you could watch that one, it's the best one.
Oh my god. I don't think I ever drew on someone's face in Sharpie. That would be so much. Like that's it's not coming off.
No,
that's horrible. I still don't really get the freezing broth. Like it's just supposed to make your boobs cold. Like what? I don't. Okay. Anyway, I never did it, and I don't think I ever will at this point in my life.
Wait, that's a prank? I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Store my bras in there.
I read the wrong transition guides. You know, it's like.
Do you also sleep with your fingers in water, Grace?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh no. That's all the feedback we have this week. If you want to send in feedback, find us talking shit everywhere. Leave us a comment on YouTube. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. Or podcast at Talking Shit is another way you can reach out. It's time for us to get into our ratings. I don't know. This one I thought was a little on the easy side to do. Grace, do you have a contender for your MVP? You're simply the best of this episode. Who was the best?
Ooh, I do think the Alexis moment is so good. Just the moment in the car of admitting that she's in love with Ted is probably enough to give me the MVP. But it's between her and Moira. I think Moira's so funny and so good and gets all of her flowers this episode. But just for that one little moment, I'm going to give it to Alexis, I think.
Okay. Stuart, what about you?
Yeah, there's always a kind of pull back the curtain and kind of try and work out why you give someone their MVP points. Is it because they were supremely entertaining? Is it because they were being funny? Or are they just doing a good thing? Like, do you want to give it to them because they're like a good person this time round and everyone else is being awful? And so it feels a little bit weird to like say Alexis to me because it's kind of like she has a bad episode. It's not a great episode for her. Like she feels bad after it. But I think I'm going to give it to her for much the same reasons has been said this entire show, is that it's a supremely important episode for her. And I think it really kind of like finalizes that, yeah, she's certainly grown. And so I think it's an important episode for her. So I think she deserves it for that.
Yeah, I so badly want to give it to Moira because she's so over the top in the most Moira way possible. But you can't ignore the character progression of Alexis in this episode.
Moira's going to be so mad when she finds out she didn't get MVP episode in the episode title called R.I.P. Moira.
She almost died, guys. But yeah, Alexis, on top of that, I think her selflessness in getting David the exclusivity deal with the goat cheese, I think is like that's really big of her. That goes a long way. So yeah, I also will give it to Alexis this week. Alexis, even though you had a tough week, you're simply the best to us. Let's talk disgruntled pelican points. I feel like it's no surprise. Roland, you're nasty. Cover your mouth when you cough. Okay? Use a plate when you're eating a cinnamon roll. I don't feel like these are big asks. I guess they are, but like, my guy, if you're gonna eat such a disgusting meal, at least cover your mouth when you cough. I
love a crumbly pastry, Jess, and you gotta have a plate or at least a napkin. You know, you gotta
at least
you gotta catch the crumbs.
And because these are presumably these are the cinnamon rolls that Johnny is getting from what's his name? What's his name, Stuart? Do you remember Ivan? You know that they're in the like lobby of the motel, which means they have to have either plates and or napkins sat next to them so that a person could take one. And he just ignored all of that.
It is a podunk motel, you know.
But he didn't even finish it. You know? Like it's pretty much the whole thing is there. Just
have you watched television though? People don't eat the food that's in front of them. They're like, you know, when they like sit down for a breakfast, they're like, gotta go. and there's a
You
full
say
like
that.
continental breakfast in front of them.
What I did notice though is that the milkshake that Roland was drinking was going up and down all the way through those scenes of where they were editing it. So Chris Elliott was definitely like drinking that down mid-scene, which probably because he's trying to like hack up chicken skin and like make a bit out of it, but inexcusable. Continuity must have been furious with him.
My disgruntled pelican point is going to Roland, obviously.
Sure.
Stuart, what about you? Who do you think?
I mean, it's going to be Roland, but I won't lie. I did consider Ted for the briefest moment
Because of the excellent pun.
No, I thought that was. I thought that was all right. I'm not gonna lie. I love a Ted pun. The cheesier the better. And that wasn't an unintended quiche pun. But with he should have spoken up. He should have said, "Oh yeah, that's my ex that worked for me," kind of thing. He should have said it to make it less awkward, and should have been mature about that. And I think there's a reason why he didn't. For which maybe if the way I project things going might happen, I might give him MVPs for down the line. But for now, he was in contention for that. But doesn't even compare to anything that Roland did. Roland is the absolute fucking worst in this episode. I'm so angry with him.
What about you, Grace?
I will give it to Roland. I feel like one thing we haven't really said this episode is that I'm going to give it to Roland, but I'm going to give the slightest bit of knockoff for actual to Johnny, who this is like we don't like Roland, but we don't have to be. We don't have a relationship with Roland. We don't have to do any. And Johnny, this man is asking you to be the godfather of his child, and I know we find it out, but maybe like figure out a way to like, I guess he is trying, but just some. I'm still giving my point to Roland, but some Johnny, they all have growing to do still.
Oh. Imagine going after Johnny like that. Who would do that?
No one on this podcast, surely.
Definitely
Everyone
would
loves
never do
Johnny.
that. No, but it's the same
well,
thing as what happened with the funeral with Bob. He was like, you given the kind of like invitation, yeah, okay, it comes a bit left field, but like if someone offers you that and is very kind of earnest with it, don't be quite so rude about it, dude.
I love when he's like, it makes me think about what would happen if something were to happen to Jocelyn and I. He's like, this is a heavy conversation for like 8 a.m, Roland. I'm with him on that.
It's true. All right.
All right. Well, those are our ratings. Us all completely in lockstep here this week. Let's talk Wig Watch because, oh boy, we not only have an incredible wig to discuss, we have an incredible entire outfit to discuss. This is iconic, Stuart. I love this look.
The fact that the shot opens with her back to the camera and you can see the wig beyond the hood that is meant to be pulled up is just fantastic. It's huge. The curls. What is going on with this? But I think the thing that makes it just so good is when she's like kind of psyching herself up, walks towards the door, and then just like puts on that smile. Funniest thing, I saved the GIF from earlier because I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch it a million times. It makes me laugh every single time.
Yeah.
She walks outside to nobody too. That's the best part.
And then the run to the office.
Yeah.
The massive shoes and the train. I love when she gets done talking to Stevie and she just like whips the train around and she's like, it's nice to get dressed up for dinner.
But it kind of thuds as it hits the ground because it's so heavy, like the pleather kind of like situation going on. It's like, poof.
I love any of Moira's curly wigs. I think those are probably my favorites. And so this one, it's just incredible. It's big, it's blonde, it's curly, it's paired with a ridiculous black outfit. And of course, naturally, Grace, as always with Moira, looks like she is wearing a necklace that would weigh down her neck so heavily.
Yeah, I mean, is this not like this is an awful wig, which is why it's amazing. The outfit is amazing. The outfit is incredible. No, the little hood thing is the best, and then it's a wild wig to pair with it, and so that's what makes the whole thing good. Like that's essential Moira Rose. So it's incredible. The whole thing is amazing.
I love it so much. I love it so much. I mean, the green wig was iconic from last week, and now we have this wig. Like, hopefully the trend continues and we have more
Yeah.
wigs to come.
The wig
I love
quantity and quality for this season is beginning to skyrocket a little bit.
Yeah, we're on the upswing.
Yeah.
All right, let's tier rank this episode. As a reminder to everyone, hot shit, full bouquet, love that journey for me. You, David, and shit out of luck are our tiers. Stuart, do you have a gut feeling on where you think this episode belongs?
High full bouquet, I'm thinking. I thought this was a really solid episode. I talked about like kind of the Ven thing before. I think it hits on most things that I want from an episode. I'm not too sure where I would possibly rank it within that, but I'm thinking to the higher end possibly. What about yourselves?
Yeah, Grace, what about you? Where do
Well,
you think this belongs?
See, this is harder for me because I'm not rewatching as much as you folks are, so it's just mostly gut instinct. That like my instinct was full bouquet, and I actually wonder whether like it's really hard to remember like in terms of these season episodes just how good they are. But my instinct was full bouquet, and then wherever you put it in that, because I don't think it's not peak Schitt's Creek, but it's just so good. The only thing, honestly, I think weighing it down is that I think the Johnny Rowland storyline is just a bad C storyline. But like that's fine. Even it's not even that like we've like chuckled at some of the things that happen.
Yeah, there's
in that,
still
so
some
it's fine.
charming moments in that storyline, which is why I would agree that I would put it at the top of full bouquet. So within the there we go. Within the full bouquet tier, I would put it at the top because I think the Alexis David stuff is stronger than the strongest storyline in Asbestos Fest. And on top of that, I think even the Johnny and Roland storyline, which is definitely the weakest, still has moments that I enjoy, right? Like I like the first time watching this being a little surprised that like, oh yeah, no, Roland is asking a lot of people to be the godparent of his child. Like that's not something you necessarily expect. And the fact that he does want his child to be like looked after and taken care of, right?
Yeah.
There is like a charming aspect to it. So I agree. I think it belongs at the top of full bouquet.
That's an agreement.
We've hit a good stride here. So yeah, I'm excited. We have a nice looking tier list now. I'm excited to see what we have coming up. Stuart, next week's episode is titled Season 4, Episode 6, Open Mic. What does that mean to you?
Are we going to get Moira doing stand-up? Please. Please, can we get Moira just like drunkenly just get on stage and doing stand-up? That would be incredible. Where is there going to be an open mic? Because there's not, like, there is the bar that we went to recently. So maybe we could be getting back there. That could be interesting. Maybe it's like an open, maybe it's karaoke.
Okay.
I could love that as well. Yeah. Okay. I want it to be stand-up. I'd be happy for it to be karaoke. Wonder if it could be improv.
Anything where someone's using a microphone could be a live podcast. You never know. Someone's starting a podcast.
Like hot mic.
I will say, I picked this episode, but that one is an all-timer. Just so you know, you're in for a good one. So, you know,
this one, and unsurprisingly, I think to everyone listening, we do have a guest. Another incredible Canadian, Dr. Melissa, will be joining us on the podcast. She has had this episode picked out, I don't know, a year. How long has the podcast been going on?
Yeah, I can imagine that in the same way that I did that I pegged a happy anniversary, which like meant that I put in a request and it was like the end of season 2 for me to come on. I completely I think I was like, how did I not request that episode? And I look back and it's crossed out on the options of lists that I have because somebody beat me to it, which is totally fair. So it's a good one. Stuart. You're in for a good one.
It's an all-timer. It is a very highly appreciated episode of Schitt's Creek for reasons you will understand once you watch it. It is so good. I'm so excited to get to this episode. It feels like a big episode. It's a crossing. It's a line, right? Like there is the moment we get introduced to Patrick. like, I feel like this is also one of those like staple moments of Schitt's Creek.
I would put
Ooh.
money that it's probably the most rewatched episode of the entire show.
Oh, interesting. I don't know that it is for me. Oh, granted, when I watch, it's like I watch all of them all over again.
You know, you rewatch everything a million times, so you're a little bit,
Listen, did I watch this week's episode 3 times just today? Like, maybe
Yes.
I did that.
Yes, have you watched Succession this year? And I mean 2025.
No, I haven't
No?
actually.
No.
I've considered it, but the problem is
Yeah,
I have
that's
too
right.
many other things to watch
I
at the
know,
moment.
fair enough.
But yeah, that'll be next week's episode. I cannot wait to discuss it. Open mic. So make sure you get your feedback in podcast@talkingshit.com or on social media @talkingshit. Grace, you have so much going on. Tell us about it. Where are you
Yes.
writing? Where are you podcasting? What
Yeah.
are you talking about?
Writing for Parade, mostly right now about Severance, which is very exciting, has returned. A little sneak peek, I believe I'll be joining the Severance feedback show for We Know Scripted TV with We Know Severance. So writing about that along with a bunch of other shows. Also on Pop Heist, I'm writing over there, new website, talks all things pop culture, and then mostly podcasting here on but on We Know Scripted TV about the Tastemakers. It's because Jess is normally around when I'm
here.
podcasting, so and yeah, Jess, you and I should have some coverage of we'll be reuniting for some podcasting in the near future, so that's very exciting. Yeah, but We Know Scripted TV, the Tastemakers, all that jazz.
Incredible. Stuart, we have a bit of an announcement as well, and I can't believe we forgot until the end of the podcast to even bring this up.
Yeah. So everyone's been telling us to do something else. It's not Parks and Rec. I'm just gonna lay that out. It's not Parks and
Break
Rec.
everyone's hearts right immediately. It's not Parks and Rec.
Yeah, but hearts will break for this. I think going forward, it's The Last of Us. We have launched a podcast, Look for the Light, where we're going to be going through season 1 of The Last of Us. We're going to go episode by episode and build up towards season 2 when that releases. So that's now been announced. First episode's out Monday, 27th of January. And yeah, Look for the Light pod on all the socials and the link trees and everything. Please go and subscribe to it. Gaining traction really early really does help. So yeah, looking forward to that.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, rate and review. It really, really does help. And if you are new to The Last of Us, if you somehow weren't convinced to jump on board with either the game or the show, we are doing it in a spoiler-free fashion with small segments at the end of each podcast that are spoiler-filled. So you can join us along the ride for your first viewing if that is something you're interested in. And it's a little bit more edited, I would say, than this podcast is. It has a little bit of a different feel, but it's still us chatting, doing our thing. So definitely go check it out. We appreciate it. And yeah, you could find me everywhere else as normal. Shit 90 shows taught me. Not Shit Happens, a Boy Meets World podcast. As ChatGPT would like it to be.
I have an announcement of my new podcast. Shit Happens, a Boy Meets World podcast. Thank you.
So stupid. I love it. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's all for us this week. So until next week, everyone, warmest regards.
And best wishes.
Tweet us on Facebook or leave us a review and you say, yeah, okay, I think I will.